guys anything, Coach? Ron, you mentioned last week that it was encouraging to see Greg back out there and continuing to take steps. Is that still sort of the trajectory right now?
Yes, it most certainly is the trajectory. He actually took some reps as part of it. So again, we'll see how he is tomorrow, and we'll see where what the next step is in the process.
Christian, on the injury report, is that just being cautious, or?
Yes, that's all from the game and everything like that, and just give him a chance to catch his breath a little bit.
Ron, he was listed with a knee last week, a foot this week. Is it just kind of general?
Pretty much, it's just kind of traveling down the leg.
Toe next week.
Ron, after the San Francisco game, Kyle talked about one of the things he learned was not to press too much, and you had reiterated that. What can you take from a game like up in Green Bay?
Was that he didn't press. If you look at some of the decisions he made, the throws he made, they were pretty doggone good. They really were. And probably the thing that was really impressive was that he didn't try to force into bad situations. You saw him pull the ball down. You saw him scramble a little bit. You saw him dump it out of bounds when he had to. So I think, again, this is all part of his growth as he grows through it. And that's really the neat thing because, again, thing we really can't forget is that he has started 7 games for us this season and has done a nice job. So, again, he's just going to continue the process of his growth.
How encouraging is it to see that progression from when you can draw kind of direct lines between the two situations?
I think it's really good. I think he's a guy that, the more opportunities he gets on the field, the more likely he's going to show improvement and grow. He's done a nice job with it.
Hey Ron, at this point in a young player's career, specifically with Kyle, how important is being able to process and manifest criticism?
I think it's very important. I think not just for a player early in his career, but throughout his career. I mean, and that's one of the things that guys have to do is you got to handle it. And he's a guy I think that has been in some situations where he's had the target on his back, and dealing with it in an appropriate manner I think is important. It is part of your growth, and being able to control yourself and stay composed is whether you're on the field or off the field I think is important. And I think he's done a nice job with it.
A couple players throughout the locker room say that being in that quarterback's room, there's an understanding of the standard that Cam Newton set about progressing and about being able to handle certain things and continue to move forward. And you don't survive that quarterback's room without adhering to that standard.
Well, I think that's true, but I think it's true for professional athletes, period. I mean, there is a certain compartment you have to handle. You've got to be able to deal and compose yourself. And I think that's one thing that is important because, again, perception is important. I think if you can handle it and stay tall, then it won't affect you as much on the field either. I think that's all part of it.
To that point, last couple of weeks, it kind of seems like, maybe I'm just making this up, that Kyle has left a couple balls short on some streak routes. At what point do you just tell him to throw it as far as you can and let those guys run under it?
I think at times when you do see him throw them short, I think he's trying to be too perfect. And that's one of the things that he does work on is the deep ball. We saw it last year when we went up there to New Orleans in his only start last season. He came out and just cut it loose, and I think sometimes when he does cut it loose, he puts it out there, and you watch DJ go get it, you watch Curtis go get it. So it is a little it's one of those things that hey, you don't have to be perfect with a deep ball because you get guys who can go get it.
Ron, you guys are giving up a lot of big runs, one of the lowest in the NFL, 20 plus, 10 plus. Is there anything that you think has gone into that lately, or?
Well, I think the biggest thing is you look at it, and as we break it down, and I've gone back and I've looked at the 3 games, it's more of us being disciplined, more of us staying where we're supposed to stay. And as I've said too, though, if that gets to a point where it's consistent, where it's 6, 7, 8 yards, you really truly get concerned. The thing that is concerning, though, is that we've had a number of them where they've been 15 yards or more. That's probably the biggest thing that's disappointing because if you get 2 of those, now that throws your average out of whack, and then the perception is that it's killing you, which it is, to be honest. But that's something we've got to correct, and we've got to make sure we don't give up those big runs, the big pops like that.
How do you go about addressing something like that and trying to
Well, the first thing is just showing it to the players so they understand that they hold each other accountable, that they're accountable. And the same thing, too, and I've said it, too, I just got to make sure that we're putting them in position, that we're giving them all the tools to do it, whether it's allowing them the freedom to make a certain call or check to move a guy down or to change a gap of responsibility, we've got to make sure we're also putting them in position to have success.
Coach, with a number of DBs banged up, is a guy like Cornelder coming in on day one, is he getting reps
Yes.
straight away?
And that's why you bring a guy back and that you had in camp, and we were fortunate Corn was still on a practice squad with the Giants, working with them, so he was ready to roll. Bringing him back because he knows our system, so his transition back should be seamless. He got some reps today, and it was good to see him out there. But it's also important when you have guys like Cole Luke, who we activated last week, and they actually ended up having to go out and play for us, ready to roll as well. And as I've said before, we've given the young guys reps with the ones and twos, so we kind of know what their background is, and so. Having that opportunity to bring a guy like that back and getting him integrated immediately is very important.
Speaking of those signings, you guys signed Mike Davis off waivers last week or a couple weeks ago. Dante Moncrief. Both those guys were free agents. Were those guys that you had kind of kicked the tires on, looked at during free agency?
They are. They were guys that we most certainly did study and did take a look at. And it's interesting that both of them became available. And I guess some of those moves had something to do with the compensatory picks or whatever. But when guys like that are out there and they're guys that we have discussed and we have talked about. Some of our coaches do have history with. We most certainly do take a serious look, and when it comes to the personnel part of it, that goes to Marty and his guys. So when dealing with those types of personnel situations, Marty handles those.
Do you know if you guys will be represented in CAP's workout, and if so, who?
Well, like I just said, that's a personnel decision, so you have to discuss that with Marty.
Would you like to see the team take a look at Colin?
I think, again, guys, I'm going to just tell you, you need to discuss that with Marty.
Did you see anything special from DJ Moore the other day, or anything in particular returning the punts? Because, releasing Dortch, anything?
Well, that one of the things that, you have to have is on your special teams is unless you have an extra spot. And with the situation we've had with the injuries the last couple of weeks, we've had to elevate guys and we've had to keep extra guys up for specific positions. That's why we put DJ out there. This week with the DB situation, a little disconcerting, we had to make a move, and Dortch was the guy that we moved. And so putting DJ out there is a guy that we know can catch punts first and foremost and is explosive. We really don't want to try and expose him as much, but he's a guy that we've got to be able to use in that type of position. And he does more than just catch punts. He's one of our receivers.
The way Kyle played in the fourth quarter and the elements, the situation, had a clear impact on Greg Olsen, who's been in the league a long time, said it was one of the most impressive performances he's ever seen. When a guy plays like that in that situation, can it grow the confidence in those around him?
Yes, very much so. And that's really what you want, is you want guys to be able to say, man, if we do our job, if we just do a little bit more and give him a chance, he'll give us a chance to win. And that's really what you're looking for, is you want guys that will be out on the football field that will give the team a chance. And when he does that, when he shows that he has that kind of ability with a little bit more help or effort, a little something extra from somebody, I think you can really get that across to the guys. Who knows what can happen. And again, we're, as I said too, this is really going to be his 9th start since he's been here this week, and I think things just continue to grow in the right direction.
What do you remember about the first time Bradbury went head-to-head with Julio, and how has he progressed over the years?
Well, you just see James growing in confidence. He's got a good skill set. He's got the good body structure that you look to have to be able to compete with a guy like Julio. Julio's, he's an elite in this league, and a guy that's physical, that can run, that's long, that has a good competitive spirit about him. I think is the kind of guy that you want to be able to line up against Julio. It's a tall task every week when you ask James to do certain things, or Dante, depending on who that guy is. And so to have a guy like James, we feel very fortunate. We just think he's got the right skill set, right mental makeup.
You guys have struggled a little bit on offense converting third downs. Is it just staying ahead of the chains that can help?
Yes.
Or?
That's the biggest thing, is we just got to stay ahead of it. It's interesting because when you go back and you look at certain things about when you are converting, what are the down and distances? When we've hurt ourselves or we've struggled, we put ourselves behind it, whether it's a legal procedure or a holding at the wrong time. That puts you into a tough spot. And again, that goes back to guys playing together, playing with each other, being a lot more familiar as to what's going on around you. and at the same time, just, being disciplined.
And if you look at all that Atlanta has done throughout the season, studying the New Orleans game perhaps a little more closely because they were successful, or is it, or their tendencies, what you've seen, did they kind of mirror what they've done all year and it just
That's
worked?
exactly it. You got to look at this game for what it was, and this was a team that went out, had a plan, was able to stick to the plan because they got a lead. I mean, you have to take it that way. You go back and you look at the other games that they weren't as successful and see what they did when they were behind. You look at what they did when they were ahead, and that's really how you have to break it down and try to figure it out from there. There are some really good things that they did, and credit to them as an offense. The way they attacked them, and then credit to them on defense, the way they played. And so as we approach this game, we're taking everything into account. You take, first of all, in my opinion, what we did is we took all the stuff they did, the last 4 or 5 games. Then you take the games that they were successful in, the games they weren't as, and you break it down that way.
Thanks.
All right,
Appreciate it.
cool. Thank you, guys.
Oh, I'll let you